It is the last week in January. Let's reflect. Indulging myself by having a 4 p.m. caffeinated tea, but desperate times call for desperate measures. I am not desperate, I am just more tired than I would like to be at 4 p.m. Happy last week of January, everyone. I thought that it being the last, I actually think it's the last day of January, I wanted to reflect on some of my 2025 resolutions that I set for myself at the beginning of January. I have my journal right here, Salacious. I thought that we could go through it together. I had a couple of different ways that I made resolutions for myself in the new year, but one of the ways that I did was I made myself an ins and outs list for 2025. So I thought we could go through it. Well, I thought I could go through it and you could be there and we could do it together. We can just see if end of January me still aligns with what beginning of January Caroline wanted for myself this year. My first in was 20 minutes of reading daily. And I don't know if I've kept this up so strictly, but I do know that if you added up all the minutes that I spent reading in January and divided them by 31 days, it would probably average out to 20 minutes, if not more, of reading a day. I'm really happy with the way that my reading year is going so far. My next in, I'm gonna read it to you exactly how I wrote it, so that way you could just feel what I was feeling at the time. I wrote unencumbered writing. Write if it sucks, write and be bad, just write. And I think that in comparison to 2024, I definitely have written more this month than I did on a monthly basis last year. It's definitely not a time, like I'm not back. There are times in my life where I have written more, but I think that what I truly meant with this one was to write freely and also share that I am writing freely and share what I write and just share that like I like writing as a hobby. I am someone who writes in my free time. I have shared my writing this month a little bit. I'll give an example, the example of how I've shared my writing. It was two of my best and dearest friends in the world. It was their birthday this month. And we had a celebration for the both of them. And I wrote each of them an essay in the style of the Anthropocene Reviewed, if you know it, by John Green. It wasn't essays about them, if you know the style of the Anthropocene Reviewed. It wasn't essays about my two friends, but it was essays in dedication to my two friends. I, kind of weaved their personalities into the writing. And I had a really good time, like thinking back on this month, being able to share those things that I wrote with them in mind in front of them and all of our friends. It's like one of my favorite memories from the month. So we're keeping that as an in. Moving on to my next one. I don't know if I'm gonna share everything that's in here. I'll combine my next two ins. I wrote striking up more conversations and natural connections. It's hard because there's really no way to track this, but I just noticed, I don't know if it's like from pandemic things or what it's coming from, but I am a fairly outgoing and extroverted-ish person. And I feel like for the past couple of years, I have been avoiding conversations and definitely avoiding connections. It can be just something as simple as like making eye contact with people that I'm passing on the street and saying hello, which I know isn't for everyone and like it doesn't need to be, but that is something that I have done and I want to do it more in 2025. Like I said, it's hard to track but I like that it's in the ins list, and maybe I can come up with a way to track it more, or maybe I just leave it there and I'm intentional about doing it more this year. Either way, it's staying in the ins. I am so sorry if you can hear this train in the background. My next in, I really like this one, was seeking out new music artists and not just relying on Spotify. So something that I noticed when my Spotify Wrapped came out, I am just a girl. I love Taylor Swift. I love Gracie Abrams. I love Sabrina Carpenter. Like, I am just a girl. But I found that I don't know what would come first. I would find a song from an artist because it was big and popular and I really liked it. And then I would be listening to it on Spotify, and you know that your apps talk to one another. Like, we know this. So then I'd go onto social media, I'd go onto TikTok, and I'd hear the same songs. And then because I was hearing them on there, I was hearing them more on Spotify, and like my daily mixes, my Discover Weeklies were all just the same stuff. And that's fine, but I can also hear those artists whenever I want. So I've been really trying this year to lean into artists that I either haven't known about or that I know that I love, I just haven't listened to as often. Examples of the latter type of artist are Maggie Rogers, and then also Haim the Band. When will they make new music? I don't know, but I've been listening a lot more to them, and that's been great. I also have just been like taking more of an interest in artists that my friends like. An example, favorite song that I found this year so far. Picture this, I'm coming back from the beach with my friend, Meredith. Do you know her? We're coming back from the beach. I'm driving. We're coming from like the Caribbean side of Costa Rica back into the city, into San Jose. And there's this mountain pass road that you have to take. And it is a cloud forest when we are driving through it. And there's just like this fog and these low hanging clouds, and it's dark and it's moody, and it's so, the windows were down. It was fabulous. Meredith puts on this song called Smoke by Joy Oladokun. And I love the song in isolation, but I also love the song because of the memory associated with it. That's how I'm gonna try to find music this year, just a little bit more authentically and not having an algorithm tell me what I should be listening to. My next in is nonfiction. I feel like this is, if you're in the bookish space or community, you see this kind of reading resolution a lot of the push to want to read more nonfiction, and I am in it. And to me, I don't know why, because I know this isn't true, but in my head, nonfiction equals biographies or historical nonfiction. And that's just not something that I see myself wanting to pick up. I know that nonfiction is so much more than that. For example, right now, I am reading a nonfiction book called The Darkness Manifesto, and it's about light pollution and night and darkness and the importance of darkness and its impact, like the impact that light pollution is having on the world. And I am loving it. I'm learning so much. It's really well written. That's the kind of nonfiction that I want to lean into in 2025, because I am someone who loves learning and I miss learning. And nonfiction is a great way to learn and satiate kind of that part of myself. My last in was another kind of bookish one, and it is TBRs. I am not holding myself to strict TBRs. Let me tell you my strategy actually. On the very next page in my journal, I wrote myself a January 2025 TBR. So I have this original TBR, but then I'm not holding myself back from other books that I might want to mood read. I might want to pick up in the moment. For example, I have currently finished 1, 2, 3 books total on my original 5-book TBR for January. However, I've added on 2 finished books. Let's just go through the entirety of what I've read in January for fun, a little bookish corner. The first book that I finished in January in the new year was Everyone in My Family Has Killed Someone. I was really glad that this was the book that I chose to kick my year off with. I really enjoyed the voice of this one, which reading reviews, not everyone did enjoy the narration style. However, this book kind of proved it for me. I am just someone who's never going to fully love a procedural mystery plot line. It's just not my idea of a good time to follow a person or people solving a mystery. And that's what this book is all about. It's an homage to that style of storytelling. So that part didn't love. Narration style, the whole meta-ness, the whole self-aware narrator of it all, I really, really enjoyed. Next book that I put on my original TBR, but I haven't finished yet, is called The Wilderness of Girls. This one is one that I'm actually reading for my book club, and I'm about 70% of the way into it. I think it's young adult, and if I would have read it as a young adult, I would have really, really loved it. Now I'm not hating it, but I'm also not loving it either. The next one that I put on the original TBR was Saints of the Household, and I'm really, really glad that I read this. It follows, well, the author herself is Indigenous Bribri, who are the indigenous people in Costa Rica. So, and the book follows two boys who are also Bribri, and they're living in the US. I think the author lives in the US as well, but it felt really cool and also important to read that and have that representation. I don't know that there's a whole lot of that representation in books in general, and especially not in YA, so I was glad to have read it. Next one is The Darkness Manifesto, which I am not done with, but I told you earlier that I was enjoying it. Next one, I kind of forgot that I read this one. This was the last one that was on my original TBR, which is The Giver of Stars, which was recommended to me by the whole, everyone, but also specifically my friend Delia. And oh my gosh, am I glad that I read this. I just felt like I was watching a Turner Classic movie the whole time. I listened to the audiobook narrated by our girl, Julia Whalen, and I don't know, I had a really good time with it, and I'm really glad that Delia pushed me to pick it up. And then there's two that I added on to my TBR. Kind of like, this is the equivalent of when you make a to-do list, but then after you started on the to-do list, you add things that weren't on the original to-do list just so you can check them off. That's the style of TBRs that I'm going for in 2025. I read Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. This one is a romance, which this style of romance, like the rom-com, I guess. Is this a rom-com? I don't know. But this style of romance, I never overly love. This one, however, I actively disliked, which was a bummer. And then the last book not the last book that I read in January, but just the one that there was another one that I added on to my TBR because I just picked it up and read it and finished it. And that was James by Percival Everett. Oh my God, that book. How is any other book this year gonna compare? It's definitely, right? Yeah, it's definitely the best book that I've read so far this year. I need to add this. Well, I don't know that I'm gonna finish this. I'm about 70% of the way through Pride and Prejudice right now. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. 2025 might be about to be my Jane Austen year, and I am so happy and excited. Okay, moving away from Bookish Corner, let's go to the outs that I wrote for myself for 2025. The first two can be just lumped in together. I wrote 1, TikTok, 2, mindless scrolling in general. And I have to tell you guys something. I deleted TikTok on January 1st of this year. It was the first thing that I did in 2025. I woke up, I was at my parents' house at the time visiting for the holidays and things. And I had made this list the night before, and it wasn't planned. I wasn't on New Year's Eve saying to myself that I was gonna wake up the next morning and delete TikTok. However, I did indeed wake up that morning. I rolled over, I picked up my phone to do my normal, at least 20 minutes of scrolling in bed. It's the holidays, but also yeah, I was scrolling that much. 20 minutes minimum, right? My thumb is down on the app, and instead of, opening the app, I just hold my thumb down and I delete it off my phone. So TikTok is out for 2025. I haven't been on it once. I missed the whole TikTok ban thing, which is just our country. I'm in Costa Rica, but from the US. this country. I am scrolling less mindlessly, but there still is mindless scrolling in 2025, just way less than in 2024, and deleting TikTok has had a lot to do with that. I also wrote as an out biting my nails. If you know me, hello, nice to meet you. I am a chronic nail biter, and I think that I have definitely done a better job with not biting my nails this year. There are two things really that I have to thank for it. One of them is this Sally Hansen's Miracle Cure. It strengthens my nails, which my nails are super weak because I'm biting them to the quick constantly. And also I just really like having a sheen on my nails. The next thing that is helping me is this. It's kind of like a sensory, can you see that? It's kind of just like a sensory ring that I can roll up and down my fingers, and it gives me the kind of like, I don't know, sensory release that I'm looking for when I'm biting my nails. There's some I am so sorry on this outs list that I am just going to keep to myself. Maybe not forever, but for now. But my last out was mood reading. Mood reading was out in 2025 just because I really am someone that needs a plan. Like, I need to have my next book in mind, and I never want to deprive myself from reading something that I want to, but I also need to have a next book in mind. Otherwise I will flounder and I will start a million things instead of just sticking to one. Okay, that's my ins and outs for 2025, plus a little, not necessarily a wrap up, but at least you know what I read / am reading in January. I hope that this month, January, the first month of 2025, was what you needed. If not the entire time, at least some of the time. It is not too late ever to write an ins and outs list for 2025, for months, for the week, for the day. And I've really enjoyed reflecting with you. Thanks for joining me on this last week of January. I love you so much, and I'll see you again really, really soon. Bye.